crank that baby up. Okay. A little bit up. There we go. Seems like I'm forgetting something, but I guess not. All right. So, what's the deal with the weather? First off, I thought it was supposed to get up into the 20s above, not staying in the 20s below. Oh man, there's too many things. What should we start with? Sorry. Anyways, here by myself again, so I will have the lines open all the whole show. If you want to call in to complain, to comment, talk about what I'm talking about, talk about something you want to talk about, or maybe just ask me a question. Oh, most important thing, tomorrow's the Super Bowl. Go Patriots. Go Pack, go. Yeah, there's a couple things I want to talk about Trump real quick. One of them is, you probably heard on the news, some court judge said no to the travel ban, so Trump's tweeting, which isn't that kind of odd? We have a president that tweets. He doesn't hold back on his tweets. Good for him for that, but he said it was ridiculous and he's going to fight it. It'll be overturned, blah, blah, blah. The guys are pretty, not pretty, he's very, very arrogant. I don't think they're going to be able to overturn it. I don't know if the president has, executive power. I don't think that falls under being able to stop people to come into the country that are legally here. Pretty interesting. I always thought, too, that executive orders, you had to be either in a state of war or a state of emergency for them to come into effect. Because we have this thing called Congress, supposed to pass the laws. It's funny when Obama's in there, Republicans are freaking out about, he signed executive orders. He's using executive powers that are reserved to the Congress. Trump's in there, he's Republican, so, yay. And the left is saying, he's using executive powers reserved to Congress. It's a joke. Politics is a joke. Nasty one, an expensive one, but it is one. So I don't think he's going to get it overturned. Well, it'll go to court. More court. I do see that he's got some dude that he's promoting to be Supreme Court Justice. And what was his name? Anyways, I know that Andrew Napolitano was a wonderful man. Is all for him, so that's good. And there's one other guy that I really like that's all for him. Anyways, so maybe he'll be somewhere. They say somewhere over on the line of Judge Thomas, who's more libertarian than Republican, which is good. Oh, yeah. Trump, if you don't know, has already become a murderer since he became president of the United States. Congratulations for that. We certainly don't want to have a president that's not a murderer. And he jumped right into it, didn't he? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it was last week. Well, stop. Before that, right after last Saturday, another judge put a temporary ban on Trump's ban, and the Border Patrol refused to obey the order. So you had a federal judge making an order, and the law enforcement side of the executive branch refused to obey it. That was interesting. ACLU wrote a writ of habeas corpus, which, if you don't know what that is, you need to study it because it's a very important tradition in Western civilization. Very important. If you don't like your butt rotting in jail. They refused to obey it, so the ACLU tried to get the judge to send in federal marshals to these different airports to enforce his or her injunction. And he or she, I think it was a she didn't do it. But I thought that would be interesting to have one section of the executive branch refusing to obey a federal judge's order, and then sending another part of the Justice Department inside an executive branch department to go. Yeah. I don't know. I do know a house divided against itself shall fall, and I am eagerly waiting for that to happen. Okay, on to Mr. Murderer. I think it was last Monday or Tuesday or Sunday. I don't know. The Donald signed another order to send in some commandos. I think specifically SEAL Team 6 into Yemen. And, it's just Yemen's obviously on the top of the list of American interest. Most people don't even know where it is. Sends a commando raid in there to apparently try to get some information off a computer. That Al-Qaeda people had there. Which, another example of Al-Qaeda not being there until we started the war in the Middle East. They parachute in, fly in, do whatever they do. And shooting started, dump. And I guess one SEAL team member was killed, a couple wounded. But they say that they got some head dude of Al-Qaeda. Everyone's a senior leader in Al-Qaeda when they kill him. I think that's funny. But in the meantime, they also killed 30 other people who were not combatants, including 9 children ages 3 to 13. One of them, a little girl, 8 years old, shot in the neck and left to bleed to death. And if you remember, this girl is actually... Oh, my phone keeps being stupid. Of course, the United States denied any civilian deaths. We don't do such things, they say. But I'm trying to find the story real quick because if I can't, I'll just wing it. But I don't know if you guys remember a few years back when Obama had that directed CIA to drone that dude that was American-born, Alawaki or something like that, in 2009 or 10. And there was a big uproar. Well, not a big enough one, obviously. But there was an uproar because he was an American citizen, no trial, no nothing. Actually wasn't even charged with anything. And they did a drone strike, killed him. And that's when, his legal team came up with some asinine legal reason why he could. And I remember at the time we were all talking here about, so if they can do that to him, they can drone anybody, anywhere, including on American soil. Americans. So I think it was a week after that, or a couple weeks after that, they droned another dude. Except this dude was 17 years old, or 16 years old. It was Alawaki's son. And they also killed that's right. He was 16. They killed his 17-year-old cousin also in a drone strike. And I remember, who's also an American. And I remember that the the Obama spokesman at the time just said something about, well, he should have picked a better dad. 16-year-old kid. Zappo. And I remember that the grandfather of the kid, who doesn't have any ties to any Al Qaeda's or whatever, even though that obviously doesn't matter, he was pretty upset and got on the news and everything. He said, look at this kid's Facebook. He was not a terrorist. He's just a kid. The kid's on Facebook just talking about life, right? Anyways, the 8-year-old girl that got killed was that kid's either sister or cousin. Same grandpa, though. Oh, here's the story. Oh, yeah. The kid's sister. So Anwar Alawaki's son, 16, got killed by a drone strike, and then his 8-year-old daughter got shot in the head or neck this week by the great Donald Trump. Well, of course, he didn't pull the trigger. Some people might say that. He didn't actually pull the trigger. But neither did Adolf Hitler. Adolf never actually shot anyone that we know of except for himself. But we blame him, don't we? Uh-huh. So, anyways, congratulations, Donald Trump. You are a part of an elite group of folks who think they are God and take life at will, at a whim, and apparently don't even think anything about it. I guess it's easy when they're over there, right? Pretty sick. And they hate us for our freedom. The Donald Trump is talking about, what was it? So Iran tested a medium range ballistic missile, supposedly. I don't really know if it was a ballistic missile or what, but whatever. And Donald went nuts. Said they broke the treaty. He's going to wrap up the Iran nuclear treaty. He's going to crumple it up. And our wonderful new head of defense and everything, head of offense, said that Iran's going to pay for this. And Trump said all options are on the table. Of course, when you're president, you got to say that because people expect you to be ready to murder people. And but if you go to the ronpaulinstitute.org, Danny McAdams has a pretty good article in there, or even on Target Liberty, Danny McAdams, who I wanted to get on this week, but a little too late to ask him by the time all this unfurled. But you can see a pretty good article from him. He breaks it down. I mean, he's actually someone that's read the agreement and knows a lot more about what's going on in the Middle East than Donald Trump does. Guaranteed. He said that the missile test didn't violate squat. Okay, remember that part, because you're going to keep hearing that it is, but it's a lie. The test didn't violate the treaty or any treaty. They said, it violates the United Nations treaty, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't. So now, a few things I read was the U.S. is saying that we need to take unilateral action against Iran because the Security Council and the United Nations can't get anything done, which means they never let us go to war. And they put another round of sanctions on Iran, even though we have an agreement with them to pull sanctions off. And Daniel has a really good article. In that article, he also talks about the lead up to the war in Iraq. And I don't know. I haven't actually talked to him personally, so I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, but it pretty much looks like it's very much like we're going to go to war with Iran. Probably just, send in a bunch of, I don't know, a bunch of missile strikes or something to hit these selected targets or that selected target. Then we'll say no civilians were killed. Iran will say we killed hundreds. Then they'll retaliate. Which, that's kind of not good. But, if you read the neocons are talking about, or the rabid Republican warmongers, or your average Joe six-pack guy that leaves comments on blogs, we'll wipe Iran off the earth. Oh, they can't handle us. Blah, blah, blah. Right. You're right. In a face-to-face confrontation, Iran could not win. They don't fight that way. Hello, Afghanistan. Hello, Iraq. They don't fight that way. They would just send their boys underground and fight guerrilla warfare. And as we have seen all the way back to our American Revolution, can't beat the guerrillas. No head to chop off. But I'm hoping beyond all hope and reason that he's just plain saber rattling for his constituents that voted him in to be tough on Iran, just like being tough on immigration, being tough on blah, 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 Muslims. I'm hoping that's all it is. But things don't look good. Iran's conducting military exercises, which, they always do that. We always conduct military exercises. Not good. I was hoping at least, when we get a new president, they talk a lot about the first 100 days. I was hoping at least for the first 100 days we could have like a cessation of hostilities. Like, maybe not kill anybody for 100 days. Not threaten anyone for 100 days. Oh, no. No, 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 no. The United States has also threatened China, saying that we will not allow them to have the islands that they built, and possibly will forcibly remove them from the islands. Well, that's just another brilliant, just so smart. I mean, where do they drag these people up? Unbelievable. Our new spokesman at the UN for the U.S., ambassador, I guess, to the UN, threatened Russia this week. Said that you better get out of Ukraine, specifically Crimea, which most people in the United States probably couldn't even pronounce Crimea if they read it, and they sure wouldn't know where it is or care. But apparently it's in the best interest of the United States to be involved there. So she flat threatened the Russians. McCain went over there, threatened the Russians. They're going to try to give more arms to Ukraine, and, so frustrating. It's like, why can't we just not threaten people for 100 days? And I thought old Trump, when he was running, said something about, we're not going to go around bullying people. We're not going to go around toppling governments and blah, blah, blah. we're going to take care of America first. America first. Make America great again. America first. So far, everything in the news is overseas first. But I guess that's what you get when half or most of your cabinet are military folks. They like war. Well, we'll see what happens. Hopefully they will rattle sabers, act tough, talk tough, then back off and quit being stupid. But since when have politicians ever done that? Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, yeah, you mentioned something about presidential orders are not supposed to be issued except in a state of emergency.
That's what I thought.
Well, you're right.
Hit me. I know.
Well,
I know right where you're going. Bring it on. I was hoping someone would call and say something like that.
Yeah. Well,
I think I know.
Let's start out with 1862.
Mm-hmm.
Abe Lincoln, by presidential order, there was a crisis going on, an emergency, wrote by presidential order, suspended the writ of habeas corpus.
Yes.
As far as I know, he died and never, ever rescinded it.
I've never read anywhere that it was rescinded.
I have never either. So you might simply say Abe Lincoln's order of the writ of habeas corpus, you have no right to go anywhere in this country without the government's permission.
Yep.
And now as far as 1932, our wonderful communist president known as Franklin Roosevelt, who knew he was the only one who knew how to run the country and ran out time after time to prove it. Well, at any rate, he declared a national emergency in 1932, and it had the first one I got from Bruce Catton. I'm pretty sure Bruce Catton's book on the Civil War. He wrote three books that I read on the Civil War, and the second one I get here about Franklin from Something's Wrong When. You ever read it?
No.
Get it and read it. It will open your eyeballs. You will understand exactly what's going wrong in this country.
Something's wrong when?
Yep. Yeah, I have one, and I would loan it to you, but I ain't about to do that because I ain't going to lose that thing because it is something that is so fantastically written. And it's backed up. It isn't somebody just running off the top of their head.
Mm-hmm.
They got the documents referenced, and there's all the references in it. Okay?
Yeah.
So now you know why you have no rights and freedoms in this country. Two reasons. One is our disgusting scuzzball president called Abe Lincoln. People don't know it, but he destroyed the Union. And the other one is Roosevelt, who knew damn good and well that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked.
Absolutely.
Absolutely knew it, and he sent a very low-key message to the commander. By the way, did you know that the guy who was the commander of Pearl Harbor committed suicide eventually?
Yeah.
It wore on him so bad that he couldn't take it anymore. He killed himself.
And didn't they, if I remember right, I think it was in the 90s or something like that, Congress actually, because Roosevelt blamed him for everything or whatever, then Congress gave him a posthumous pardon or something like that.
Gave who a posthumous?
That general that got blamed for Pearl Harbor.
Oh yeah, he was an admiral, by the way.
Admiral.
I think he was a captain, not an admiral, but he was Navy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking
don't know
Congress gave him a pardon.
I don't know if he was ever tried for it or not. I don't think so. I don't know what they would pardon him for.
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily a pardon, but yeah, we know it wasn't your fault type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it did him any good being dead for 70 years, but.
Yeah, at any rate. So, okay, now you know where the, now, I'll call you back later on this.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact that you have to govern yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I'll call you back on that idea, okay?
All right. And I found the book here, and I'm downloading it on my phone right now.
Oh, something's wrong when?
Yep.
Yeah, go get yourself the hard copy so it isn't shining at you. It's reflecting at you. Difference between something shining in your eyes and something reflective light.
Yep, that's true.
Okay.
All right.
Well, hey, have a good day, guy.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, I've also heard the, as far as executive orders, if you remember back when NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act of 2011 or 12, they had sections 1021 and 1022 authorizing the president to indefinitely detain Americans. And everyone was up and down in arms saying, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. And Lisa Murkowski, she was all for it. And I remember people writing, all blah, blah, blah. And she wrote an article in the News Minus here in town, or they published it anyways, where she gave this long, blabber speak, lawyer speak, politicians speak nothingness, and talked about, I wrote a big article about it years ago. But anyways, there's something about she said, well, Roosevelt did this and it's constitutional because of this and that. And she brought up the law of why it was constitutional and legal, which, it's just so funny. These people hold up their hand and vow to defend and uphold the Constitution, right? And then immediately and some not immediately, but then they vote on a law or something that's totally unconstitutional. In your gut it's not right, and they come up with a reason and say, well, it's constitutional. Okay, who in the right mind that even if you don't think if you've never read the Constitution, don't know anything about anything, but you're an American, so you've heard of the Constitution before, and if you go up to just anybody on the side of the street and say, do you think it's constitutional for the government to come arrest you and throw you in prison and not charge you for anything? The first thought in their head is going to be no, right? So no, the Constitution is pretty simple. Very simple. Why? Because some of it was based on common law. Common law, natural law, is up here in the old brain, right? It's common sense. So then you got to get lawyers and Supreme Courts and politicians to twist and turn to make things what they aren't. Right is wrong and wrong is right. So I don't remember exactly what law it was. Maybe I'll look it up top of the hour because it's coming back. She said, it was constitutional. It's already been to court. The Supreme Court during World War II said that Roosevelt had the right to detain some Germans who had snuck over here. Sneaked, whatever. And detained them without any kind of trial. I think they had a lawyer, tried habeas corpus, whatever. That didn't work. Supreme Court said, yeah, it's okay. You can do that because we are in a state of war. And the president had already declared a state of emergency in the United States. So that was the ruling that Murkowski at the time said what gave the president now the right to detain people indefinitely without trial or due process. So logically or reasonably, that would have to mean that we are still in a state of emergency. We already know we're in a state of war, global war on terrorism. You always have to have a state of war in America. So that's kind of where I was going with the executive orders. You have to be in a state of emergency, state of war. We're always in a state of war. all the way back to World War II. Well, before that, but let's just make it easy on ourselves. Since Vietnam, since Gulf War One, definitely, we've been in a state of war nonstop. We had the quote unquote war on drugs, which was a authorized, if you want to call it that, war. So we've always had a state of war. We've always had a state of emergency, which does theoretically give the president these extrajudicial powers. Extra justice powers, which means it's beyond justice, it's beyond judicial. It's extra. But yes, you do have to be in a state of war, and we are. So that's how they get away with it, in my mind, anyway. I might be wrong, but I doubt it. I was wrong once, so I can't remember when. I might be wrong about that. Huh. Anyways, if you think about these extrajudicial stuff, right? Think about that. Think about a guy gets elected and has these powers over other human beings that most human beings don't have. And I would say that he doesn't either. But he gets a pass for it. It's okay for him. Right? He just murdered some people, but it's okay for him. It's legal. I'd say it's not lawful, but it's legal. So you have to think, how did that come about that you have someone... I mean, basically what we have with the president is a bunch of people made an office, called it a presidency, and then as time went on, these presidents proclaimed more powers, pretty much said, I am God, I am he, bow down, the most powerful man in the world. Kind of reminds you of the divine right of kings. If you remember the divine right of kings, the king could do whatever he wanted to. This is true, too. The king could do whatever he wanted to, and he couldn't get in trouble for it. He could murder people, rape people, burn people. But he was there by divine right of God. God put him there. And to criticize the king or say the king did something wrong would be directly to say that God did something wrong, or you're criticizing God himself. That's why back in the day when the Catholic Church had all the power and some of the kings didn't like that, so they they made little deals here and there, but the king wanted to be the one that told the church what to do. So he told himself, I'm the divine. I have the divine right of kings to do this. And for centuries upon centuries, people fell for that crap. I mean, they literally believed it. Because one dude stood up or was in a family line of whatever, of kings, royalty. He would say, I want you to go kill that person. Well, you can't just do that. Well, yes. How can you tell me no? I have the divine right of God behind me. So people were afraid to even say a bad thing about the king because you were saying something bad about God himself. Now, eventually, we got smarter and said, this is stupid. You guys are a bunch of jackhole murderers. Hey, guess what? The king has no clothes. He's just a human being, too. Oh, gee, golly willikers. We did that in America. We had this little thing called the American Revolution. No kings. Even though some of them wanted a king, even afterwards. Ugh. Anyways, so now we have this thing called the presidency, and he claims more power than a king would ever imagine possible. I mean, a king would roll over in his grave in jealousy to know what a president's power is now. Unlimited, untouchable. Even a king was ultimately responsible to his people if he wanted to stay there, or if he wanted his grandkids to be there. So I'm hoping, let's see, we've had presidents for about 200 years now, 230, 40 years, about 235, 40 years. And we have come to this conclusion that the president has the divine right of God. He can do whatever he wants because he's the president. Well, he got voted in there, But he's just a human being, another man. So I'm hoping it doesn't take centuries upon centuries for humans to wake up and say, no, Mr. President, you're no different than anybody else. You will be held accountable and to the law. You can't say, I'm just doing it for a state of war and murder people. You can't steal from us and call it taxes for civilization. You can't take our kids and make them go to war, conscript them to war, and call it our duty to you. It's funny when they do that, they say it's your patriotic duty to go fight for your country or whatever when they conscript you, right? But who do you have to obey? The president. So I'm hoping sooner than later, people will get it through the brain. Just as we needed no kings who had terrible powers, we definitely don't need presidents who have ultimate powers. We'll see. It's actually one thing I think is good about the Donald Trump right now is that his whole candidacy and everything is that there's a lot of people that have looked at it and got to see like the Democratic Party for what they were. And they got a bad taste for presidents. I mean, who could have thought that Donald Trump would actually win, right? The guy was just on TV as a TV star here a couple years ago. And he still tweets on Twitter. I don't know. I think we're definitely going to be going to war pretty soon. And it's pretty sad. I'm still hoping not. Maybe some, maybe something will change. And of course, they think, yeah, something will change all right. These people do what we want. Then we won't have to go to war. If the rest of the world would just obey us the way we want them to, we wouldn't have to go to war. But it don't work that way, does it? Divine right of kings. Divine right of presidents. Remember, Hamilton wanted to have a king. And I think it was John Adams who wanted the president to be called His Excellency. The president. So you always have this power struggle. You always have this thing where people want to give someone power, ultimate power. You can just imagine a king riding through his countryside and the peasants who are eating bones and starving, living in rags, worshiping him as he rides by on his grand steed. Oh, your majesty, your majesty. Throws a few coins out as they grovel and fight over him. Tells them to keep up the good work, boys. Get back to that farming. Raise a few extra pigs this year, so I can take them from my fat belly. Then go back, have a nice meal, think about all those peasants, and thank God that he did not make him a peasant, but made him divine. Not much difference than now. I don't know if any of you ever thought about this. Any of you ever known of a politician that's having a hard time? Monetarily, at least? You know, when the economy goes and we're struggling to find work, we're struggling to live, struggling to make ends meet. Well, of course, when that happens, the government's coffers go down. So what do? They want to tax us. Even though they're living high on the hog. Very well. At our expense while we struggle. And the only thing they can think is, well, we need to tax the people. We can't let our coffers go down. We need all the gold we can get. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, since you brought up the president's executive orders, I popped open my pocket constitution and was kind of speed reading through the articles there that relate to the president.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, I didn't find executive order in there anyway. Maybe I was trying to read through too quickly or paying too much attention to your program there, but I didn't find that.
Not going to find it.
I kind of knew that.
I know.
Yeah, it's kind of a short section, and you might even want to buzz through it.
Oh, you know what? I will read through the, what is it, Article 1, Section 8, or is that the Congress? I'll find it here.
It kind of starts there with the description of, what the role of Congress is, what the role of the president is, how he's elected, and so on.
Right.
It's kind of broken down three ways there at the beginning, right? Then they get to the judicial power and so on. But anyway, then number two is there were worrisome signs about Trump when he was still, running for the office. And what thought occurred to me is that, like a bad dog learning bad tricks, he was talking about things that he was going to do, which always seemed like they were just going to be basically accomplished by edict.
Uh-huh.
And what occurred to me was that, like a bad dog, he learning bad tricks, he had learned this just by paying close attention to our present dictator then,
Yeah.
Vladimir Obama.
Yep.
Okay. Then you brought up Lisa Murkowski, and we also should remember that she's a whore for the National Education Association, and that's probably her number one loyalty. And you'll notice that whenever anything is mentioned, about trying to raise, educational standards, that she's always the one saying that Alaska should be exempted, and especially when it comes to education for Native students, we just shouldn't expect so much out of them. And it reminds me of a time probably too long ago for you to know about or remember, when there was a professor in the education department up there at the university.
I got to interrupt you. Do you want to hang over or call back? 'Cause I'm at the top of my hour.
Oh, I'm sorry. I I didn't look at the clock there. Okay, I'll call back at the top of the hour, or at the end of the news there.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
This is Patriots Lament. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Joe Chiro. The State Department says people covered by President Trump's executive order on immigration may now travel to the United States. The reversal follows a federal judge's decision to put the travel ban on hold.
This is temporary. It's not the end of the story for this extra vetting for visa holders from 7 countries, countries that the Trump administration says it's concerned about because of possible terror ties. This judge's order is expected to be challenged up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and then possibly to the Supreme Court. For now, though, the federal judge's ruling stands. U.S. District Judge James L. Robart, appointed by President George W. Bush in 2003, ruled that halting President Trump's executive order is, quote, in the public interest.
Fox's Molly Hanneberg. President Trump vented his frustration with the ruling today on Twitter, calling it ridiculous and saying it essentially takes law enforcement away from our country. Vice President Mike Pence is confident Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch will be approved, telling a conservative legal group that Gorsuch will be seated one way or the other.
When you get right down to it, Judge Gorsuch, plain and simple, is one of the most mainstream, respected, and exceptionally qualified Supreme Court nominees in American history. But don't take my word for it. That was actually the conclusion of the American Bar Association in 2006.
Vice President Pence speaking to the Federalist Society. Today in Philadelphia, Gorsuch would fill the court seat left vacant by the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. The administration going back to the drawing board after Vincent Viola withdrew from consideration as Army Secretary. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis says he respects the decision, will come up with a new candidate. The Military Times reporting Viola cited his inability to navigate the confirmation process. You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Time starts now. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat? Where can you find the answers to these questions?
The government!
I'm ready anytime you are, Sheriff. Okay, now I've been bragging on us a whole lot, so let's do it good for Mr. Maxwell. All right? Used to have old banjos all strung up with twine, and only song you could hear me sing was "I Wish That Gal Was Mine." Oh, you kicking you, oh, you, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's run away. Took my wife to the barnyard and I set her down to supper. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Oh, you kicking mule, oh, mule, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's run away. Face is like a coffee pot, your nose is like a spout, your mouth is like a fireplace with all the ashes out. Oh, you kicking mule, oh, mule, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's run away. Oh, you kicking mule, oh, mule, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's run away. Oh, you kicking mule, oh, mule, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's run away.
You're listening to Patriots Lament on 660 KFAR.
Gentlemen, there is no longer any ground for hope. If we wish to be free, if we wish to preserve inviolate those inestimable privileges which belong to us as free men, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, in which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our struggle be obtained, then we must fight. I repeat it, sir. We must fight! And appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all we have left us.
Arms, Mr. Henry! What arms? We are weak, sir!
They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so powerful an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week? Or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British Guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs, hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemy hath bound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means the God of nature hath placed in our power. 3 millions of people, armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country that which we possess, are invincible by any force our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sirs, we have no election. Should we be base enough to desire it, it is now already too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat, but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged, their clanking may be heard upon the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come!
Mr. Henry, we speak for peace, sir!
It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that blows from the north shall bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that they wish? What would they have? Is life so dear? Or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death!
Two arms! Two arms, Mr. Henry!
Woof da. That doesn't give you a little bit of a rouse. I don't know what can. Obviously, that was the speech by Patrick Henry. The very end of the debate in Virginia of what then shall they do? What should be done? Hope you enjoyed that. That one, I think I've talked about it before. That one was on PBS at one point, which I always thought was funny that PBS would have something like that because they're like totally anti, they're pretty much the communist news network. But even from them, some good. Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. Not that I'm really enamored by this thing at all. But it'd be nice if they would at least constrict themselves to it sometimes. Article 2, Section 1.1. The executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the terms of 4 years, and together with the Vice President, chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. Now, here's a history lesson for you. Cotton picker. Hang on a second. I got to close this. The sun's up. They didn't have shades in here last year, when the sun was up. Now we do. I couldn't see a thing. It's beautiful, but it's kind of hard to see the board or even see this book I'm reading. All right, here's the history lesson for most of you, because I bet most folks don't know this part of the Constitution. Each state, he will be elected as follows. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed as an elector. That's funny. Electors shall meet in the respective states, vote by ballot of two persons, of whom one at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state as themselves. Will make a list of the persons they voted for, the number of votes for each, yada yada, House majority, this and that, electors and electorates, and blah blah blah. Changed by the 12th Amendment. Congress may determine the time of choosing. That's why I just skipped over, because it's no longer applicable. Congress may determine the time of choosing of the electors and the day at which they shall give their votes, which day shall be the same throughout the United States. Section 5. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of the President. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall have not attained to the age of 30 and 5 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Natural-born citizen. Huh. They made such a big deal about Obama being a natural-born citizen. I don't know if he was or not. If he wasn't, he definitely shouldn't have been president. But neither was, what was his name? Ted Cruz. He was born in Canada. Huh. Section 6. In the case of removal of the president from office or of his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of said office, The same shall devolve on the Vice President, and Congress may by law provide for the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability both of the President and the Vice President, declaring what officers shall then act as President, and such officers shall act accordingly until the disability be removed or the President shall be elected. Changed by the 25th Amendment. Oh. So this week, a Obama advisor wrote a nice little article giving 4 ways to get rid of Trump, and one of those was to declare him unfit for office. And which is, whatever. Who is fit? I mean, seriously, tell me. Considering what we talked about the last hour, who is fit to be president? Who's fit to be your ruler? No one. No one. No one. The other thing she said, that she also recommended that the armed forces have a military coup on him. Which I don't think I've ever seen anyone that was, a somebody, quote unquote, call for a military coup. The president shall at stated times, it probably means something the way they put it in here, receive for his services a compensation which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected, and he shall not receive within the period any other emolument from the United States or any of them. So the states themselves. I think the president makes like $285,000 a year or something. Chump change, Before he entered the executive of his office, execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And George Washington famously ended that with, "So help me God." And that's kind of tradition now. But that part wasn't actually in the Constitution. President will be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states. When called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of the respected offices, and he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. He can't pardon himself. He shall have power, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provided that 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may, by law, vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper. In the President alone, in the courts of law, or the heads of departments. The President has the power to fill all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. Here's one we all get excited about every year. He shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union. And recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them in the case of disagreement between them. With respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he thinks proper. He can receive ambassadors and other public ministers, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and commission all the officers of the United States. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. That's it. End of it. That's it. End of story. That's the president's powers right there. How long did that take me to read? Even with me pulling down the shades over here. It's like a page and a half. 2 pages. Especially because half of it isn't even, over half of it was about how to elect him. And what he has to say, who he has to be. Then section 2, there's 1, 2, 3 sections in there, subsections. And there's section 3 and 4 that are very short, just a few sentences. So that's it. That's all the president's power. And we have created him and let him become the most powerful man in the world. That is pretty dumb. And based off what I just read, I don't see it in here. Anywhere. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion and the public safety may require it. Hello, caller, you're up.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I just wanted to make a couple of comments, and part of it is just to get, hang on just a sec, I have to turn my radio down, I'm sorry, hang on.
No problem.
That's probably better.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, I think we need to put a couple things kind of out there about how to even evaluate what proper order is. We have the word of man and we have the word of God. And God's word is straight and vertical to us, and we need to understand that it's not the word of man. It doesn't have all the wiggles and elasticity of going on this side of the fence and that side of the fence. It's very different, and so we need to understand that as a demarcation to what's true north, if you will. And the next thing I wanted to point out is we should understand with respect to the difference between government, which is ordained by God, and bureaucracy, which is ordained by man. They're not the same. We, the people, are the government in our country, and we need to function as such. Now, how that plays out, I think there's definite room for education here, because we have, like the lunatic fringe in California right now that are, in civil war against the rest of the people of America. I'm just collectively calling us that, but we're really the United States. I think federalism is what led us to globalism, and that's the train to hell. That's what Antichrist is going to lead up. And that system, which these leftists are, rioting for, which they don't even understand where it goes, they have no clue. They have no understanding about what's happening. I think that it's up to people that have a clear understanding of truth. And I'll give you an example here. Right now, local, let's bring this home. We're being confronted by the reassessments of our property tax. And of course, property tax equals no private property. That's what it's telling us. And God says that we're responsible for 2 basic commandments regarding personal property. And one is thou shalt not steal. That's the 8th commandment. And the 10th commandment is thou shalt not covet. The first thing it says is thy neighbor's house. The last thing it says in the 10th commandment is anything that belongs to your neighbor. Well, how could anything belong to anybody if there's no such thing as private property? And how can there be private property if there's property tax?
Yep.
So I'm just trying to give an example I'm just using that as an illustration here. As far as the discussion that you were on and reading, I believe that federalism, again, is very different than the United States. I think that, for example, Alaska, as a functioning, group of us, we the people, can in fact rule our own selves properly. We need government. I'm not against, having law and order. If somebody doesn't put up those stoplights downtown with green and red, that do their thing, we're going to have collisions all over the place. That's just a mechanical fact. We do need to have a method of governing ourselves, and we do need proper government. Now, how that's done, I've got lots of suggestions about that, but that's not really where I want to go. I just really wanted to say today, it's that season of the year, and these people that are whores that have basically decided that they're going to take it into their hands to steal other people's property by gunpoint if necessary, and force you to have to be violated for an inalienable right God already directed and says that we do have private property in the Ten Commandments. And I just wanted to use that as like an illustration of, instead of looking at this from the gigantic mountain of trouble that it all is with federalism, let's back up and come home and let's say, how can we defeat this type of chicanery against we the people? And do we need a petition? How do we get rid of property tax once and for all? And I'll throw one other thought out to you. What I see, the biggest reason that they have this property tax are for the MCCs, as I've named them. Those are the mind control centers. You could call them, the bureaucracy and their school system, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just wanted to ask that question to you, Josh. What do you suggest we do? Start a petition? How do we get rid of this infection that has been in our own local government?
Just a second. Sorry about that. It would take a lot. I mean, for one, if you look at or listen to different folks that are on the borough assembly, say John, what's his face? I don't know. I was listening to a couple of them the other day, and they think, and I think in their, I don't know if they really think it in the heart of hearts, but they think that property tax is a right of theirs. They really think that it's a proper aspect of quote unquote government. And I think that it's been around for so long and unchallenged, or not challenged enough, that most people, even though I've never met anyone that likes property tax, and for the most part, once you talk to someone about it, even briefly, and it's pretty easy to show that it's theft and that you don't own that property, you're just renting it from your local government. I think it would take a while. It'd take an education drive. I mean, a lot more than what I do here on it. It would take an education drive to get people to hate it. I mean, to get something to change that's that much part of what our society is, people would have to hate it. And you'd have a hard time getting rid of it with the people or the organizations that you named, the public schools. I mean, they would fight tooth and nail, and media-wise, it would be a hard road there. So I think it would have to start as a grassroots, under-the-table media campaign for quite a while.
That would make sense, and I would add this, that the reason that I'm focused on that particular issue as like a baseline is because if we can't even put our own house in order in our local backyard, then I don't think that we need to worry a whole lot about what they're doing, in these foreign countries, because we got we've got so much that is between here and there. I think that this is how all of the people, we the people, should begin, is we should take back what's given to us by God, our inalienable rights. That's the first thing that we should do, and set our own house in order, and then help others in other geographic locations to do the same. That's what needs to happen. I think we need a grassroots move, because I don't think it'll ever come from the top down.
No.
So everything that I'm appreciative of the right things that the president is doing right now.
Yep.
And I'm appalled by all of the things that were done, that kill innocent people anywhere, anytime. I'm not for that ever. I think if you go back in the early 60s, when they did the report from Iron Mountain and actually analyzed with a think tank what would happen if peace actually broke out in the United States, or for that matter, it could spread into the whole world, what possibly could they do to maintain control? And it's like, I think that tells a lot right there.
Yeah, it does. The war and confusion and chaos is the devil's tool. I mean, it's totally how the state has control over you, by making you fearful. We're not supposed to live in fear of anything, but we're constantly told to be afraid, run away, run away. And it's a tool of power. But, with the back to the property tax, I think I hate that tax more than any. I mean, well, I hate income tax. Well, I hate all taxes, but I hate income taxes because I feel like that's still property tax. They're stealing my own sweat. But it's like you said, that is a divine right from God to own a piece of property, to own your house, your home. Your home is yours, and to have someone to pay it, we're paying a tribute. I mean, I think maybe it starts with language. Instead of calling it property tax, we start calling it tribute, because that's what we're doing. We're paying a tribute, no different than the serfs did to the king years and years ago. They had to pay a tribute to the king for living on that piece of property that he owned. But oh man, could you imagine the firepower would be on the other side, the horsepower. So I think it starts with language, using the correct terms. It starts with telling people you don't own your property. But I do think that would be, that's when I was a little dumber. I ran for borough assembly, and that was my whole goal, was to get rid of property taxes. And people freaked out on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I expected liberals to, because, they got to have their money and power. But even the conservatives, the Republicans and stuff that I were interacting with at the time, were like, oh, you can't get rid of that. So even
Josh, we're in a new time now, though.
Yeah.
The conservatives are realizing that the kind of smut that they're offering the kiddies in even grade school,
yeah.
I think that enough people are starting to have their eyes open just how far gone we have become.
I think another thing, too, that we have to offer, I want to say that, is alternatives. We need more alternatives. And it goes back to something that that my brother Aaron and I have talked about for a couple of years now. I haven't pushed on it all. We should have another school. Take your kids out of the school. We'll offer a school. We should be offering a school. I know there's good, Christian church schools out there and stuff. I don't know any of them, but I know that there's alternatives out there. But we should offer another alternative. Well, you don't like the public schools? Give us an alternative. You don't want our kids in public school? Give us an alternative. And
exactly.
I've got a good idea of how to start one. You have the backing of guys like Gary North, who started the Ron Paul curriculum. He's in waiting, ready to help us do whatever. I mean, the cost breaks and everything that he's going to give us. He was going to cut everything in half. I mean, so basically for like $200, you'd have everything you needed for your child for a whole year's school curriculum. And I know there's too many people that can't teach their kids at home. Well, they just choose not to. I think everyone can or should if they possibly can. But let's give them a homeschool atmosphere away from home if they have to. But give them an alternative.
That's right.
the only way we can beat this is to take away the need in the first place. If we don't need public schools, then we don't need to fund them.
Right.
Which obviously, you and I don't think that we need public schools. In fact, they're a bane on society. But
they're the largest slice of the tax pie.
Absolutely, 70-some%. In almost every state, it's in the 70 percentile at least. I mean,
and then you also have to contrast that with what the performance is of the public school system. In other words, they're whatever number down the list from number one in the world. We don't get our money's worth anyway.
No.
And not that I use it or any of that, but what I'm saying is it just isn't economically viable, because any business would close down if it had such poor returns for its investment.
Absolutely. Well, in that case, the whole government would have to shut down, because for $3.5 trillion a year investment, we ain't getting nothing back. We're definitely not getting the $3.5 trillion back. Not that I want to get anything back from them, but I guess we have to. I don't know. It'd be a long, hard road to hoe, but it's worth it. There's little steps. Even if we could pull some people out of the system, it's worth it. We don't have to get the whole kit and caboodle.
Josh, I believe that any one of the inalienable rights granted by God to us is a pivotal enough issue. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that the real war that has been declared isn't the civil war that's going on in America now, the bureaucracy against we the people. That's the real civil war on the horizontal plane. And now the leftists are jumping on board because they don't know what to do if all of a sudden that goes in a different direction. But that's not the real war. The real war is the vertical one, and it comes down to which kingdom. Are people in the kingdom of light, the kingdom of God's Son? Are they in the kingdom of darkness? This is really where the real war is, and that's spiritual. Most people don't see it because they don't want to see it. They don't want to be accountable for the meaning and purpose of their life, or think about where it's taking them in the end. They don't want that, because they would rather rule, in their own mind, in their own, everyone's doing what's right in his own eyes. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's why we need true north. We need truth. And apart from having the truth, if, we understand that God's vertically given us revelation to have that, so we don't go astray. You can't just bear false witness against people. You can't just go around killing people. You can't just go around stealing. These are things God said to protect all of us. And that's why I would go to the mat with anybody on an inalienable right such as private property. You take that one right away, or you take freedom of speech, you take any of this away from us and our liberty, in effect, and you've attacked the entirety of all liberty and all inalienable rights. And that's my point.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and even look at the attack on the family from, just say here locally, from OCS, an entity that thinks it can come in and steal your children. That one boggles my mind too. I mean, that one really gets my gets my goat going, especially when I see people more concerned about their right to keep and bear arms than they do about their neighbor having the right to keep his kid.
Exactly. You're
There's
right.
something wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, I think we should train our own, Josh, I think we should train our own vocabulary to start delineating between what's bureaucracy and politician stuff versus government, because government is ordained by God, and government is important. It's we the people doing the right thing. And I think that we've turned it into a bad word with its semantics associated, and actually it's a good word. It means order. It's an ordered society, not in sense of from a top-down thing, like kind of maybe the beginnings of the program, but it's that there is order in the universe, and God put it there, and He is the one that's the lawgiver, and people will answer to, like it or not. They will one day be accountable to Him, whether they bury their head in the sand thinking, well, I there, they can do that and take that approach. But everybody will answer one day for everything they've done. And the problem is there isn't a single one of us that our good is outweighed the ripples in time that all of us have caused with the wrongs that we've done. And God made a way to deal with it. And that's what the purpose of the cross is. Yep. Christ went to the cross, the just for the unjust, so we might have eternal life. And I'll leave it there unless you have anything else you want to discuss, Josh.
No, I think that's perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. It's good to hear from you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, caller, you're up next.
Okay, that's me. That's Eve.
Hi, Eve. Thanks for holding on.
I noticed that you play much better when you have a partner to play with. So before the last caller called you, I called because I needed to hear you lighten up. You sounded morose a bit by yourself. Anyway, there were a couple points that hit me before this caller called, with whom I seem to agree quite a bit. But two quotes that crossed my eyes a few days back, namely Abe Lincoln noticed when he was in Washington that Washington was full of pigs, but not enough teats to suck from. Which I think is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. That already then, that town attracted, I want to call them with the previous caller, bureaucrats. Now, the next one is from Jefferson, who said, "You must be a fool when you believe what you read on the printed page in the newspaper." Mm. And that now connects with your earlier statement, namely, what do we believe any longer because we are not surrounded by facts? Here comes a fact. Berkeley receives, and you won't believe it, $1 billion with a B subsidy per year, and it's probably half governmental subsidy, half commercial enterprises. $1 billion. And now let's see what has happened with their education. All right. Then I have a little anecdote from my own life. As you well know, I'm a foreigner, and I came into the United States on a student visa, which was attached to my then husband, who had decided to go to Stanford, where he had been before, to pursue a degree in petroleum engineering. And so I came along, and there came awful things happening. Awful things happened to him, and I was now in the United States in a wonderful area at the time. But he and I split up, and I never gave it one thought about that visa. But I was an illegal visitor or immigrant. My visa had expired, which never crossed my mind. You know, it was 1972. And so then comes the marvelous story. One day, uniformed people rang the doorbell, asked, was I such and so? Yes, I am. And would I please come to San Francisco to Immigration Naturalization Department? I said, why? They said, well, you're here illegally. All right, so I went, not once, not twice, 3 times. Then I moved, I got remarried, I moved to Austin, Texas. And, of course, I forgot quite a bit about my illegal status. And then the same thing happened. Now we have to go to San Antonio. Anyhow, the short story is that I was interviewed and asked what was the purpose. Had I had any communist ideas, association? Was I thinking about them? Was I thinking about joining a prostitute ring, etc., etc., etc.? I can make it as juicy as you will. And so it took about 6 years for me to get that green card, with lots of references from people who had come to know me, had seen me do my jobs. I couldn't get real work because I didn't have the necessary papers, etc., etc., etc. So just to lighten up on this whole issue with all the people that are coming in whatsoever way, that apparently the rules of this game, and that joins the previous speaker. We have to play by rules. In music, there are certain rules, and you adhere to them. Otherwise, there's chaos. So, in order to be a society, a group of us, we have to have certain rules, and then things might work better. But if you just open your borders and you let people come in and you don't know who they are, like they knew who I was, they followed me, and they could track me, and they could find me. But in the meantime, with so great numbers spread about all over this nation where there's not always an immigration department nearby, how will you know who you let in?
Yep.
So the point is that I wasn't insulted by what happened. Actually, it was quite interesting. I didn't feel very, I wasn't a bad person. I knew that. But how do you prove it? How do you prove it? But the reasons are for you to be in this country. All right. Enough said.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. So we'll call you up next.
Hello, Josh. This is Jim and Kenai.
Hi, Jim. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Doing just fine.
Okay. Well, I had a thought, and I think that if you watch the media's outrage, they're going to be more outraged about the less bad things Trump does, and they're going to be less outraged about the worst things he does. And Trump's going to do some really bad things, and he's going to do some less bad things, and he might actually do some things which are kind of in the right direction, and those are going to be the ones that they're going to be most upset about. Because they're not principled in any way against executive power or government power. They're simply they're going to be most outraged about the things he does, which tear down the administrative state that Obama set up. So
that offends their smallest grievances. I mean, you're absolutely right, and it drives me nuts when you said that. Or when he texted that to me earlier, I've been thinking about it nonstop. They get so upset about some stupid nothingness that he might say about marriage or whatever, and nothing about murdering people.
Yeah, and the outrage against continuing Obama's wars.
Right.
Now, those could take time to wind down. You can't just walk in and stop all of the military operations that are in place.
Sure.
Especially when a large part of your base thinks the military actually can't do anything wrong. But I can hope that eventually he'll get to that. But that really is a problem. Mm-hmm. That they go in and this attack into Yemen was a complete fiasco. I've seen reports that the stuff that they obtained was already available on the internet. It was just like stupid stuff. These
10 years
things,
old.
Yeah, this stuff all needs to stop. So, because all you have to do is to see whose side the media is on, is look at how they report about people who loot and burn things and knock people unconscious are protesters.
Right.
And somebody who says words that people don't want to hear because they disagree with them, those are violent people, right? So that's kind of nuts. And Steve Patterson has a really good short piece on how hijacking words works, and how now the word violence has been hijacked to where you can have verbal violence, and by that they don't mean a threat. They don't mean a threat of violence. They just mean saying something somebody doesn't want to hear is violence, and how this works. And it's very good. I would recommend listening to that. The one other thing I wanted to say is about the public schools is, if it looks like a government program isn't accomplishing the task, then that means you don't understand the task.
Exactly. It is accomplishing the task.
The public schools are accomplishing the task that they actually are meant to accomplish.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that every public school teacher knows what the task is. The people who fund and the people who fund it are the people who matter, not the teacher in the classroom. The teacher in the classroom, I've known many of those. They're nice people. They're trying to help children. They love children, and that's all true and right and stuff. But the schools are funded because it is a way of making the government seem indispensable. You know what? You know what happens if you take away the stoplights?
People
There are
stop.
less accidents.
Yeah, I know.
There are cities in Europe where they just don't have stoplights, and the traffic flows better.
And
because the people take responsibility for what they're doing.
And it's amazing to watch too.
They understand that there is not Big Daddy government making sure that their life is perfect, and they take responsibility for what they do.
I've seen videos of that where there's just hundreds and hundreds of cars, and they get into a roundabout, and they just roll in and roll out, roll in and roll out, and it's just watching that thing. It looks like chaos, but it's ordered.
It is not something I'm good at, but it is something I could learn to be good at.
You would have to learn to be good at.
Yeah.
Or be dead, or kill someone, and then you might as well be dead because you would have to owe them.
See, governance is a legitimate function.
Yeah.
But the owner, if somebody were to buy land and create roads, they would have a lot of incentive to figure out the best way to provide safety for their customers, their paying customers.
Right.
Right? As opposed to bureaucrats who have very little incentive to do that. They have to wait, how people die on our highways, on the government's highways that make each year is the Vietnam War on the highways.
Right.
And it's just insane. But the government doesn't have to pay any cost for that.
No.
Because nobody's held responsible.
I before you go, I want to make a comment to you about the topsy-turvy of, what violence is now and everything. It's kind of interesting how it seems like it was ramped up just in the last year, but it must have been the last 2 years where everything got really crazy. I mean, where we had these safe places.
Oh, yeah.
And hideouts for college kids and pandas, little teddy bears to pet. I mean, it seems like just in the last year or two, maybe we're just now getting told about it, but it sure seems like it was almost like people knew Obama was going to be gone, so they had to ramp up the agenda.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just Obama, but you know what I mean.
Haidt, who is a lefty, but he is actually able to critique his own side. He's got a really interesting thing about this. Let me come back to that. So the universities need to be completely defunded, completely, because the whole purpose, the other purpose besides indoctrinating people of the educational establishment is to put these people who have been taught stuff which has no application in real life. They need some place to put these people.
Yep. Where
people will think that they're productive, and that's what the universities are. All these studies things, all these black studies, women's studies, queer studies. All these people are put there because the universities have to meet equal diversity goals for their professors, and they can't fire the white professor who's teaching physics because he's got a contract. So, but they have to hire some other slot. So they invent new studies and they put these people in these new groups, and then in order to fill out their rainbow of different colored people. And that's not like I have a problem with, hire who you got to hire. Just don't make up boneheaded subjects.
And make us pay for it.
And then the whole purpose of these entire divisions is to teach people Marxism.
Yep.
And it's like, Marxism worked so well in the 20th century. What's 100 million dead people? It's not that big a deal, right? We'll do it better this time.
Yeah.
So,
look at Venezuela. They're doing great.
They're doing great, Okay. So I lost my train of thought. But, oh well. I'll talk to you later.
That's good enough. Thank you.
Weekend.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it, Jim. Bye. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hey, guys. I wanted to share a couple quotes that maybe help drive your guys' point home for some of the people that are home sitting there going, what are they talking about? How are we going to get rid of the schools? But there's a quote from Hitler where he says, the state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation. So it's a tool of control.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to tax. And I don't remember which founder the quote comes from, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember who said it or exactly how it goes. But he said that we don't tax to fund wars. We create wars as an excuse to tax. So if you look at the combination of both of those quotes, and there's lots of quotes from Hitler about controlling the youth.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about that, I was thinking of one, and I have to paraphrase it too, is when he said, "We don't care if you don't like us. We already own your children."
Exactly. Yeah. And when you look at that from both of those angles and think about, okay, well, the whole point of the public school is A, to indoctrinate, B, to control the people because it's an excuse to take their money, their liberty. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And people don't seem to grasp that, and the founders have, and you seem like you know every quote from founders that's ever been written, but so you're probably way more articulate about it. But I mean, all the warnings are there.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like these guys were clairvoyant because everything that's happened bad in terms of the stealing of our liberty and the loss of our freedoms, everything was warned about, and how they've managed to keep people from understanding that has been by indoctrinating the youth and not teaching them those principles, but instead teaching the principles that Mr. Adolf and others like him have come up with over the years.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, and it is really. I always was fascinated reading stuff from the founding fathers and stuff, and before and shortly thereafter, when you read something they're talking about, and then instantly have things pop into your mind of, yep, that happened, or yeah, that's where we are now. But we really saw when public schools became such I think it's an instrument of warfare against our liberty. Really, the public school is the most horrid thing that's happened in America. Absolutely the worst thing that's happened in America. The federal NEA, all that. And, we always have Republican presidents get elected and they say, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the NEA. It's never happened. National Education Association, whatever they are. I mean,
and it's because they contribute so much money to.
Oh, yeah.
Like Murkowski, that's why she's voting against this DeVos nomination.
Yep.
She doesn't want it. There's a lot of reasons she does what she does. She's apparently got a lot of different donors. And that's funny because you can look at the voting record of any of these guys and know exactly who owns them.
Yeah,
based
exactly.
on how they vote.
Yep, follow the money.
But the other quote now just popped into my head about Hitler. He said, and this isn't exactly right, he who owns the youth determines the future. Yeah. So between using his excuse to put basically a lien on your property to control you, it's a two-sided sword. They use the tax in the name of the children in order to indoctrinate the children. It's pretty screwed up.
Well, and eventually they indoctrinate enough of them, they don't have to tell us. They're not going to have any more dissent. There won't be any more people that are against the tax. It's just
and that's
part
largely
of
where we're at.
Yep, part of
they
normal
started
life.
doing this how long ago? In the early 1900s.
Yep.
About the same time they formed the Federal Reserve Bank and instituted the income tax. They started this stuff. Hitler's not the only one that understood all this stuff. He was just the most forward and blatantly obvious about it. It's like all these crazy rioters that are going on right now. They love to use the term fascism and Nazi and Hitler, and it's like, you people don't even realize that you have been so brainwashed and so indoctrinated that you are exactly what you're accusing the other side of being.
Absolutely right.
It's so ridiculous. But these people have had such a poor education and have been so just bombarded with not only the public schools, but the crap they watch on TV, because the average American, the last time I read, watches an average of 6 hours a day of TV. Between that and their video games and the indoctrination from the news, on the internet, and on a lot of radio stations or whatever, they're clueless.
They need to get indoctrinated on this radio station more.
Exactly. And I was thinking about
too. I hate to interrupt you. You can either hang on, but I just realized I'm over the break. I got to jump. You want to hang on?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I hope that it
Be right
stays
back.
like that and we don't have any issues. I have a green card and I have been paying taxes for 20-something years.
After thousands of protests showed up at LAX last Sunday to protest the immigration ban, we're expecting more protesters throughout the course of the weekend here at LAX.
Fox's Will Carr in Los Angeles. The White House says it's planning an appeal to reinstate the ban. Vice President Mike Pence confident Supreme Court nominee Judge Neil Gorsuch will be seated to the nation's highest court.
When you look at Judge Gorsuch's record ever since, in his decade on the 10th Circuit, he's established himself as a fair and impartial judge who's been faithful to the Constitution. He's well known by his peers as a keen legal thinker and, just as important, a clear legal writer.
Pence at the Federalist Society in Philadelphia. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey in the weekly Democratic address criticizing President Trump's choice.
Judge Gorsuch's record gives every American reason to be concerned that the basic protections that keep families safe, healthy, and productive will be at risk if he is appointed to our nation's highest court.
Markey promises that he and his Democratic colleagues will subject Judge Gorsuch to the most rigorous scrutiny that any Supreme Court nominees ever received. Los Angeles police say they've made arrests for a 1993 apartment building fire that killed 10 people, including 7 children. Police say several arrests were made recently and the people remain in jail. You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
We first opened about 10 years ago. We were small, just a few of us, but it was exciting. I always dreamt of having my own business. It was kind of slow at first, but things started picking up. We had big plans, but in our wildest dreams, we never thought we'd have this much work. Yeah, with so many businesses caught off guard by the storm, Reed Waste Management has never been busier.
What will become of your business after a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
President Trump is going to a ball for the Red Cross at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida tonight. But protesters may dampen the evening's festivities.
There's some uncertainty about this protest. The original organizer bailed out. That's when numbers began to swell, over 2,000 people signing up on Facebook. Some more seasoned organizers have taken control of the protest, but the route of the protest has been shortened as well. There are some security concerns about blocking off entrances and exits to Mar-a-Lago, so that route has been shortened considerably. It's not clear at this point whether those protesters will get within a mile of Trump's club.
Fox's Steve Harrigan in Palm Beach. Other protests are expected in Houston as anti-Trump demonstrators try to get some attention during Super Bowl weekend. The Louvre Museum reopening to visitors this morning, a day after a machete-wielding assailant shouting Allah Akbar was shot by soldiers at one of the French capital's most iconic attractions. This tourist from Malta felt safe at the museum.
I went around yesterday afternoon and in the evening, and security was everywhere. And even now that we arrived here at the Louvre, we were checked and it's secure. I don't feel any threats.
The attack came just hours before Paris finalized its bid for the 2024 Olympics. The attacker was shot, but his wounds are not life-threatening. All eyes on Super Bowl 51 tomorrow, but some people are excited about another big televised game, Puppy Bowl 13.
Animal Planet's been showing puppies running around on a little football field on Super Bowl Sunday since 2005. Referee Daniel Schachner calls the penalties.
Legal use of the tail, which we're bringing back, and truly offensive pass interference. And
of course, we're referring to odor.
He says there are some special needs dogs out there this year.
We've got a 3-legged dog named Lucky, and I don't mean that it's cool that she lost her leg, but I think it's really cool that she's out on the field.
Chris Foster, Fox News.
I'm Joe Chiaro, Fox News Radio.
Living with climate change in Alaska was the focus of a recent 5-year study conducted by EPSCoR. Learn what their studies reveal this Tuesday, February 7th, as Anupma Prakash, director of Alaska EPSCoR, presents How Do We Adapt to Alaska's Changing Environment? An all-ages event. Attend Science for Alaska lectures each Tuesday at 7 in Raven Landing Center across from Noah Ween Library. Science for Alaska lectures are entertaining and free. Sponsored by UAF Geophysical Institute and Alaska EPSCoR. Brought to you by the Triple Horn family.
Is not an iris or a wild rose, but a little flower of which I'll tell, known as brave Coney Bell. Just simple flowers, so small and plain, with a pearly heel and a little known name. But the yellowbirds sing when they see it bloom, for they know that spring is coming soon.
Yeah, we know spring's coming soon. Maybe. Someday. Welcome to Patriots Cement. You're listening to this on 660 KFAR. We'll go right back to the phone. Hello, caller. You still there?
I am.
Cool. Thanks for holding, man.
No problem. Hey, the other thing I wanted to throw out there was concerning the stuff that's happened in the Boy Scouts recently. And my father was an Eagle Scout. I was involved in Boy Scouts. I never made Eagle because I got too interested in girls. But I was also involved in this Christian-based youth group that kind of along similar lines as the Boy Scouts called brigades. And up until 2015, when they announced some of the changes, and now some of the more recent changes with the Boy Scouts, I thought a lot about forming sort of a Christian-based, non-denominational youth group like that, but incorporating like the principles of liberty and our founding and adding that sort of into the curriculum, kind of along the lines of what you guys are talking about, just to help change the mindset with some of our younger people. And if you incorporate that with outdoor activities and some of the other stuff that Boy Scouts and like brigades does, I think that would be a really positive force to help advance the cause.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've never thought of that.
Because there's another Hitler quote about give me a child by 7 and I've won the war, or something like that. About all these, and he used that technique. The Hitler Youth Brigade or whatever. That's how they did it. Along with the public schools, but they got these boys. They got young boys when they're young and hungry for adventure, and they gave them the adventure mixed in with the indoctrination.
Yeah.
So if you can give them, a lot of that principle-based sort of ideology and liberty-based ideology mixed in with the adventure, I think you could really make some headway that way.
That's a really good idea. I like that. That's a good, yeah, that's a good way that Hitler did do that, though. He gave them, he made them, young boys feel like men, young men, made them excited and go, 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 look at you. And by the way, be a good little Nazi while you're at it.
Exactly. Right. Here, let's kill small animals or whatever it is that they did. I mean, I don't know. I haven't, studied it that extensively, but um, if you can mix the positive experiences in with the evil, you're going to get yourself a pretty evil little kid, you know, an evil adult. But my plan is I'm going to be ordering some of the basically the instruction materials that they use in this brigades program, because it's actually a really good program, but it's just there's nothing like liberty based or nothing that's like based on that side of it, and I'm gonna sit down and look at it and try to incorporate it into a program. And if I get something started with my own boys, because my oldest boy just turned 6, I want to I'll start talking about it at my church and see if I can get more men, because I mean this isn't just the boys, it's gonna take men with the right mindset to get involved with this. And if I get it going, I'll touch base with you again on it, and if you wanted to get involved and
absolutely,
and, get something like this going. I think even if we can just change our own community that way, the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because our community where we live, that is the most important area of our concentration is right here. I mean, I know I like to talk about foreign policy a lot just because people are so enamored with having to vote for a president. But really, right here is what I want to change. Fairbanks, North Star Borough, or whatever. Well, I want to get rid of the North Star Borough. That'd be a good change, but right here.
And that's the only way you can start.
Yep.
And if you start there, who knows where it can build to? Because, if you go back and look at, a lot of these things like the Boy Scouts or whatever, that's how it starts. Somebody starts it in their own neighborhood, and then at some point it catches fire. And that's how everything good starts on the local level. Yeah, you got to be concerned about what's going on if we're going to have to send those sons to war or whatever. But that's where you're going to make the biggest impact. And really, where we live, as far gone as it is here, it's a lot less far gone than it is most other places in the country.
Absolutely.
I mean, I came up in the lower 48 going on 5 years here now. And it wasn't as good up here as I thought it was going to be, but it's still better.
I hear that. I hear that. That's exactly what I thought when I got here. It's like, what?
The large cities in the lower 48, man, it's no good. I've lived or worked in like 28 different states over the course of the years between when I was in the Army and I had a job that I traveled for and stuff. And it's East and West Coast is really bad in the big cities. And you get a lot of small town communities like Fairbanks where people's heads are still screwed on straight. But man, it's a mess. It's a mess down there.
Yeah, well, I like your idea a lot, and I like the idea that you're saying something about at the church too, because the Christian church as a whole needs to pull its head out of its butt. I mean, the Christian church is a huge problem in America. Christian church is a huge problem why we aren't free here. They don't understand how many people they throw in jail. The church is such a warmongering church. I mean, you go to any church and there's flags everywhere. They have the Salute the Troops Day and we got to pray for our troops. But wait, no, we need to be against this foreign policy. You need to be preaching against this war. Your God said, love your enemies. How do you deal with that? And I think that teaching the basis of liberty, because I think liberty comes from God. It's just like the one caller when he's talking about a right to property. That's from God. Our right to life is from God. Our right to keep the sweat of our brow, to keep our labor, is from God. And we need to reteach that to Christians who love the state and think, oh, you don't like the government? What?
Right. Well, and I think too this idea that I've got that I'm working through in my head right now, making it non-denominational and maybe bringing together all different denominations.
Yeah.
Would maybe help with that too, because I think part of the problem is there's so much conflict between the different denominations, and there's so many denominations now.
Right.
And a lot of people look at, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you people are crazy, or you're a Mormon, you people are out of your minds, instead of looking at, okay, what are all the things that really we all believe in,
Yep.
we all value, And I think something like this, if it was completely non-denominational, and you had boys from all these different denominations coming together and really figuring out, hey, well, yeah, we disagree on some of this stuff, but man, 90% of this we agree on.
And we're all Americans.
And we're all Americans, and we all should value the other guy's right to be Jehovah's Witness or whatever.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's kind of like the left-right dichotomy. If you look at like a lot of the stuff that these psychos right now are fighting on Trump, they should be embracing, because Trump's really not super conservative. A lot of stuff he's talking about normally the lefties would be embracing.
Yeah.
But because he's a Republican, oh no, we can't do that.
Right.
And I think it's kind of the same way with the different denominations in the churches. It's like, oh well, just because you're that denomination, then I automatically just don't agree with you.
Yeah. Well, it's just like another good example for that is the wars. When Bush was president, the left was totally anti-war. He was a war criminal, blah 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 blah, and then dead silence when.
And
Obama,
they loved Russia.
Yeah. Right. Then dead silence when Obama's president.
Oh, and they talk about Bush's little war where he went into Iraq, and nobody even talks about the fact. Well, guess what? Obama bombed 8 countries. Iraq was one of the 8.
Right.
And they don't even discuss it. And then they sit here and talk about Trump. Oh, we got to worry about Trump's finger on the button. And it sounds to me like Trump wants to scale that back.
Yeah, I think he does. I hope he does.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it, but it goes back to that whole indoctrination piece.
Yeah,
that we talked about. But hey, thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks for calling in. I love your idea too. Keep in touch with it for sure.
I will.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hello, this is Bill calling back.
Hi, Bill.
Okay. We were on the National Education Association and the wholly owned subsidiary thereof called Lisa Murkowski. And I was mentioning that at the university this was back in the 80s, there was I think it was probably the woman who was the department head of the education department there at the university. And she was very concerned that the Native students were basically being held up to a lower standard and, given kind of like a lot of easy ways out, to pass courses so that they could go ahead and graduate. And, of course, then they had a worthless diploma, essentially, because, once they got on the job, they could be found out for, not being very qualified, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And, of course, she was crucified for what she had to say. In other words, because she wasn't, going to engage in this soft racism, but try to hold everybody up to the same standard. She was just vilified, including in letters to the editor there at the News Miner. Now, related to this, what one of your callers was talking about, the need for, more homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
And the NEA, of course, is dead set, would like to outlaw, and has probably succeeded in lots of states, would like to outlaw homeschool education. So,
right.
Lisa Murkowski, if she was put in a position where she had to vote one way or the other at the federal level, I think we kind of know where she's going to be tempted to go.
No doubt about it.
And what I see in the value of homeschooling is for, ironically, the parents that are very poorly educated themselves. Because if they were to start early, kind of teaching their own children from kindergarten through high school, they would be able to by staying, they have to stay one step ahead of their kids, at the end of maybe a decade and a half, if they have several kids, they will end up being very well educated themselves.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yep.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever thought about it exactly that way. That's pretty good. That's good.
Yeah. Then a few weeks ago, I mentioned to you that I was kind of looking something up in a geography book that I had used in a university course. One thing that I stumbled on at the university was this is a way of documentation of what the founding fathers ever had to say. Is I was allowed by one of my history professors to do an independent study course, and I did a research on Thomas Jefferson, and lo and behold, I found out that there were something like 25 or 30 volumes of his collected writings.
Wow.
So if you wanted to read what he had to say, say like on the ownership of firearms or the freedom of religion and so on. Remember, he's the author of the, I believe it's called the Virginia Bill of Rights, which, addresses religious freedom. And in his case, he wanted a public university there in Virginia, and that's part of what he's remembered for. In the what do they call that when they write, your notable achievements on your tombstone? Yeah. Then another thing that I was led to by this history professor was something called Documents of American History, and the editor thereof is Henry Steele Commander. And in that volume, you can look up things like, I think all the way actually going back to the as a deal with King John there, the
Magna Carta.
The Magna Carta. Yeah, thank you. That just slipped my mind for a moment there. The going back to the Magna Carta, if I believe correctly, but also say like the Mayflower Compact, and if I remember right, there were 4 versions of the Declaration of Independence, which we know Jefferson was the author of that, but the Continental Congress, assigned to him kind of to look over his shoulder a little bit and kind of cool his hot head a little bit, Ben Franklin. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there were 4 versions of that written, and I'm thinking that somewhere between 2 and 4 of those versions, the one, including the one that we eventually, ended up with, are written out there in this volume, and also the predecessor document, the name of which I can't remember, but it has a lot of very similar, thinking outlined in it. And you can see
the Declaration of
how
Independence?
Pardon?
Of the Declaration of Independence?
This is I'm thinking of a document which might be something like have the title North America or something in it. But in any case, it lines out some of the same ideas. And like I say, that author is Henry Steele Commander. And that's a very good volume for you to be acquainted with. And then another guy that's, this is all related to the stuff we're talking about today, a guy called Douglas Dietrich. He went into the Navy, I guess, or maybe this was in the time of the Vietnam era. I'm not sure if he was drafted or trying to avoid the draft or whatever. But anyway, he ended up with a job in San Francisco, going through the naval archives. His job was to figure out what should be thrown out and what should be kept or whatever. And he made all these discoveries, about things like what really went on there in relation to Pearl Harbor, including that on the battleship Arizona, I think maybe one or two of the other battleships that were sunken, there were crewmen who were, they sank in shallow water, and these ships had, air pockets underwater there, and these guys, they were low-rank sailors, not the officer class, but these guys were, pounding on the ship hulls, hoping that their beating would be heard by the, the Navy had frogmen back in those guys, guys that could operate a cutting torch and so on, come in and save their butts. But they were, the Navy put out the order, probably at the behest of FDR, that these guys were not to be rescued. Pardon me. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. It is.
Anyway, his name is Douglas Dietrich, Dietrich.
Don't kill over on us.
Okay. No, I just got a little frog in my throat. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff that a guy can research in relation to what was being talked about today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you. I think I've been trying to. I think it was George Mason that wrote the Virginia Bill of Rights, Declaration of Rights, or whatever they called it. Then Jefferson took a lot of that and incorporated that into the Declaration of Independence. And I don't know if I'm right or about what he was talking about necessarily, but the Jefferson also drew on John Locke's Treatise on Government for the Declaration of Independence. Whether he meant something else or not, I don't know. But I am pretty sure it was George Mason, the forgotten founder, that wrote the Virginia. Well, I guess I could look it up. But anyway. Good calls. Good calls.
Objects of the most stupendous magnitude.
We got another caller. I was going to play something. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hey, you talked about like the money trail, follow the money.
Yeah.
And Jefferson, the interesting thing about Jefferson is he finally gave in to the property taxes and got a banker to finance him until his dying day, until like he got a reverse mortgage or something like that. But at the end, I guess the bank seized his property, and all his children were probably pissed, and half of them were inbred with slaves, I guess, too. But regardless of all that, it does come down to the banking system, the Federal Reserve, and how we got so many set up for across the country. I read in an article once that Murkowski was somehow a shareholder in Wells Fargo, and the government's bailed out. The government gets their money from these regional banks or these reserve banks. That's who backs them up, and so you can see where the endless line of money comes from people like the bankers who have control over people's lands and where that money is going, whether it's going to support individual rights or, their own interests. A lot of the deregulation and a lot of the politicians, too, have forced the cost of our government upon the property owners. And who does the government enrich most these days? Is it the property owners? Is it the people? It doesn't seem that way when we have so many homeless and, so many crying for their rights that are deprived by government, I guess. So I just thought we haven't looked into that at all about Murkowski and
No.
who owns these banks they're wielding such powers in places like Alaska, getting people elected and supporting the government.
No, I haven't necessarily in that circumstance. But it's obvious they're all owned by the banks. And they won't let them. They don't mind if any of us go bankrupt, but they certainly won't let a billion-dollar bank go bankrupt.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. It has been that way. And when you got the bankers or people who own great quantity of stock in the banks and get their financing through the banks, and they're going to look after the bank's interests and who profits off the banks, those government salaried who are living on borrowed money, borrowed time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the property taxes just keep, people don't complain about them because, well, if you're a government worker and living off of borrowed money and your property is borrowed, it doesn't affect you. But if you're not in that loop, if you think you're a private property owner who pays their taxes to support their community, what benefit do you get out of your community when your community takes your property away, passes laws to take your property away and stop you on the street and throw you in a cage and let other people take your property? There's a few things that should be changed, and hopefully someone will do it sometime. But it means change, and people are afraid of change, and
we got to be the ones to change it.
Yeah,
for sure. Yep. Right on, man.
Anyway, any more callers?
Nope. Not right this moment.
So, enjoying your winter up here?
Yeah. Been a little bit not busy enough, but that's all right. Take a little break. I was thinking it was supposed to be warmer now, though, but I wake up it's 20 below zero again.
Yeah, that just means you need to wear more clothes and eat more and enjoy it.
It doesn't bother me. It'll go away. At least the sun's up more and more. Before we know it, it'll be up 24 hours a day again.
Right on. Well, I hope you have a good one and keep your show going. Yes, do you plan to?
Yeah, for now.
How long?
Debate it every week.
Huh?
I debate it every week, but so far, yeah.
How long are you planning to stay in Alaska?
I don't ever want to leave.
Oh, great. You've been here how long?
Almost 19 years.
Oh.
Or 19 years. Almost 20 years. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, at least there's a lot of land and wildlife and maybe the ability to supply your own needs.
Yeah, I definitely love moose hunting here. Oh, love it. Yeah, I like it. Winters can get tiresome, though. But we get used to them, right?
Well, that's what's good about Wi-Fi and YouTube. And, there's so much education that can be gained off of, the Internet that you can learn more than just taking a course at the university.
Yeah, that's true.
You can go in depth. You can get several different points of views or more information perhaps gathered on the Internet than just presented by one professor. I'm not sure. Though, the you don't have to leave your home.
Yeah, that
if you have a home.
you'd learn it in a fraction of the time than going to university.
Yeah, no driving back and forth and shuffling around in the cold and dealing with broken vehicles.
Yeah, no joke. All right, man. Well, I'm going to play a little piece here from John Adams.
Right on.
All right. Thanks
Have
for the
a
call.
good week.
Good to hear from you, man.
Talk
Take care.
to you later. Bye.
This is John Adams. This is a speech he gave to the Continental Congress about the Declaration of Independence.
Stupendous magnitude. Measures which will affect the lives of millions, born and unborn, are now before us. We must expect a great expense of blood to obtain them. But we must always remember that a free constitution of civil government cannot be purchased at too dear a rate, as there is nothing on this side of Jerusalem of greater importance to mankind. My worthy colleague from Pennsylvania has spoken with great ingenuity and eloquence. He has given you a grim prognostication of our national future, but where he foresees apocalypse, I see hope. I see a new nation ready to take its place in the world. Not an empire, but a republic. And a republic of laws, not men. Gentlemen, we are in the very midst of revolution. The most complete, unexpected, and remarkable of any in the history of the world. How few of the human race have ever had an opportunity of choosing a system of government for themselves and their children. I am not without apprehensions, gentlemen. But the end we have in sight is more than worth all the means. I believe, sirs, that the hour has come. My judgment approves this measure, and my whole heart is in it. All that I have, all that I am, and all that I hope in this life, I am now ready to stake upon it. While I live, let me have a country. A free country.
All right, that was a scene from the HBO series called John Adams. It's fantastic. I think it's a 4-part series. And they're debating the Declaration of Independence. I highly recommend that show. In fact, I might just go home and watch it today. Well, it'd be a long day if you watch the whole thing. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic series. One of the best. Makes you want to be there. I always wish, since I was a very young man, that I could have been there. Sitting in the midst of them while they debated such things. So it's hard pressed to find some intellectual debate like that now. Anywhere. I mean, you watch Congress now, the debates are jokes. I mean, we have congressmen that are worried about islands tipping over if too many people are on them. So we've gone from that, the John Adams types, to literal congressmen that worry about islands tipping over if too many people are on them. Oh. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Josh, just wanted to commend the last caller's musings on the internet, because he really did have, whether he registered it or not, he had a really good idea.
Yeah.
And between your conversation there on the last caller, you know, he's exactly right. We could take, now it's been decades, I forget when I stopped listening to television, and I've seen it at other people's houses, and to kind of at least understand how degraded that it is, but I don't watch television, don't own one. And I will tell you that, but his ideas of what's available educationally via the internet, but what's more, I'm kind of synchronizing your idea with his in that, and on another caller's as well, that I'm sorry I haven't gotten to listen to your program for actually a few months now, and I, now have a day that I get to listen to it. I've already called you earlier, but now I just wanted to make this point.
That's fine.
If you put all this together and the churches worked with one another in town as conservatives and created an education system via the internet for our kids, and that way there would be a moral base. We'd have the natural law that's understood. We'd have our liberty proclaimed that's, based on our inalienable rights. And I believe that with some of the talent that Fairbanks and North Pole has in the teaching community of good Christian teachers, that I believe we could put a curricula together that could be then brought to, whether it's in an auditorium setting of a church or wherever, homes, neighborhoods working together with their kids, whatever it would be, we could actually have graduating high schoolers that would be, ready for their master's or doctorate, work, because there's no reason kids can't learn at 100 miles an hour when you don't expect them to sponge up trivia that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And they need the basics, they need the phonics, they need the math, they need, real education. But what they also need is they need to get unhooked from sports addiction to the what I'm trying to call the organized sports, not the fun sports, but
right.
the ones that teach them how to be mean and how to be self-serving and all of that. They need a full gamut of re-education, and so I just want to offer that as just a kind of a synthesis of what you guys were all saying in pieces as maybe a really workable way. And if that caught on, imagine the speed it could be implemented over the internet.
Well, that was my idea with our idea about the Ron Paul curriculum, because it is all online. You just, and it goes, I think they have it all the way, I know it goes all the way through high school now, but you just download the curriculum and watch the videos right there, and they have people like Tom Woods and Gary North and different fellows that I respect that are very, very educated people giving the lessons, and they're fantastic. My kids did it one year, and I watched it more than they did, probably because I was fascinated by everything that they were talking about. But it's already, I mean, to your point, it's already available with the Ron Paul curriculum, and it is fantastic, and it'll go all the way through, and they'll actually give you a diploma when you finish.
I didn't know. I've never heard of this, and this is very fascinating. I'm going to discuss this with others on my end, but if this caught on and actually became widespread in our local area, this is the whole point. Then we could take it to the school board here and say, why are your rolls down so far? You can't justify your existence any longer, and you don't get any more of our money. And show them that, we have something to offer that's so superior to what they offer, and especially when you consider that, you know, the primary is like what's been discussed. It's indoctrinating the kids, not really educating the kids.
Right. Yeah. Look, if you can get to a computer, look up Ron Paul curriculum.
Okay.
And the guy that put it together was obviously Ron Paul's the one that started it, but Gary North, Professor Gary North, Dr. Gary North, whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he's a brilliant man. We've had him on the show once.
No, I'm not, but I will look into this.
Yeah, look up Gary North. I guarantee you'll like him. But I've contacted him about it, and he was 100% behind it. He said he'd help us. You know, there is a cost to it, but it's really cheap. I mean, it's a couple $100 a year, but he was offering to cut the cost, help us get us set up. He gave me a laundry list of items to go over if we wanted, because what I had talked to him about was, I mean, kids can do it at their own home, obviously, but I had talked to him about maybe having where we rented a small building or got a building from a church or something, or got to use a church to where folks that have to send their kids to a school because they work or whatever, and we could have a small thing like that, and all your kid needs is a stinking laptop. And I know there's enough people that would volunteer to help. I mean, but it's all self-educated. You don't have to do anything. Of course, you'd want, if you have 10 or 12 kids there, you'd want someone there to help them if they have a question or need to go to the bathroom or whatever. But it's a complete course all the way through high school, and it is fantastic.
Wow, that is really, that's fabulous. And the ramifications are this, that if it could actually catch on, in other words, if the networking were done in the Fairbanks North Pole area, where mailings went out to alert all residents of the area that, hey, this is something you need to know about, look into it. And this is what builds community. This is what grassroots equals. This is when the people unite and come together for the good of their community. And this is what's the opposite of everything that, for example, Hillary stood for or Obama stood for. They were community disorganizers, and mayhem followed every step of their action. That's what they are, social engineers for chaos. And what I was going to say is that I bring everybody's attention back to the issue at hand, because it's right now the time the assessors are going about assessing your property values and on and on. And just be mindful, folks, this is a pivotal issue that's right here, right now, and they should be challenged. And this whole thing, this should be something that, we're ready, to go to the mat on. This is something that is too big to ignore, and it's gone on for too long, and it's usurped the entire process of a person's liberty. If you just stop and unravel this whole mess, it hinges on having a base of private property and wealth you can pass on to your inheritance, etc. Your ability to not be, taxed for your property gives you that same option of what you will support with the money you make that you believe in, like your church and or the good works of any charity, etc.
Yep. Do you have an email?
I do, sir.
Well, why don't you, instead of giving me yours off in the air or whatever, shoot me an email. It's just patriotslament@gmail.com. Pretty easy. Okay. And I will send you a bunch of links that I'm sure you'll be interested in on that subject.
Okay, I'm writing it down. I got it.
patriotsLament@gmail.com. I've had enough people that have expressed enough interest, and I know we could do it. I mean, could you imagine 30, 40, 50, 100 kids learning something that's true? 100 kids would change the community.
How about 10,000?
Oh yeah, I know. I'm with you there. But even 100.
Like, why think small here? I mean, we do have to start small, but let's go. This is like what needs to catch fire in one location, and then with the help of that location to others. And I was unaware of what you said about Ron Paul and what's already out there Would you tell me the man's name again, Mr. North? What's his first name?
Gary North.
Gary North. Okay. And I appreciate that. And folks out there, I think everybody should really consider this as like, this is a battle worth fighting, because this is where the hinge point is about what's related to us having our property usurped by bureaucrats. And I really believe it's tied intrinsically to the education system.
Yep, absolutely.
So thanks again for the time, and God bless everybody.
All right, thank you. Appreciate
Bye-bye.
you very much. Bye. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, this is Jim again.
Hey, Jim again. How you doing?
Doing well. The last caller spurred some thoughts. You know, first off, Gary North and Tom Woods. It's a project between the two of them.
Yep.
And it's everything I've heard has been great. I'm way past that age. The other thing is Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who wrote Gulag Archipelago and was expelled from the Soviet Union. He pretty much took down the Soviet Union from the inside. He completely cut the legs out from under the entire thing. But he was a Russian. He considered himself a Russian. He emigrated to the United States after he was exiled. Mm-hmm. And then after the Soviet Union fell, he went back because he loved Russia. He loved the Russian people. It was his place, even though the USSR had infected it. But he went back and he was discouraged because the people were saying stuff like, well, yeah, communism sucked, but at least we had the communist youth groups, right? So the Russian people had completely indoctrinated out of them any sort of self-reliance. The entire concept of, and this is then the thing that about the last caller is he talked about, you know, community disorganizers, because community organizing as done by Obama means organizing your community to demand that the federal government does something for you, right?
Yep.
Which is exactly the opposite of community organizing. Community organizing would mean going around in your community and getting people to do something for the community themselves, right, as funded by themselves and as in, you know, as being responsive to the needs that the people there on the ground see. And, you know, and you get that nice tight feedback loop of people see something good happening, so they fund it. And, oh, that isn't quite right, so it changes because it's funded by the people who are right there. They don't have to go get federal permission.
Right.
And so this is what Solzhenitsyn said was crushed in his people, the people that he left, and he was just brokenhearted over this. But this is the exact same thing that Tocqueville saw when he came over to America. As he said, look, these Americans, they just create committees anytime they see a need. They don't have to go to a government. They just get a bunch of people and solve the problem. And this communist came over, or this quote unquote, he was actually a communist anarchist, but he came over from Russia back in the early days, and he says, why are we fighting for our anarchism? America already has it because the government has practically no power. It was, you know, he's speaking compared to what he knew,
right?
Because people just do the stuff they think needs to be done, and you know this was the old American way, and this has been completely lost. So the youth group that the one caller wants to do, that's a great idea. I've been thinking about this because I had a great Boy Scout troop, but dang, they were militaristic. But everything about them was, other than that, was really great. It was very about raising up young boys to be young men, self-reliance, competitiveness as a means of building, of challenging each other to be better. You know, it was a great thing, and that would be a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, I thought that was a fantastic idea.
And the other thing I wanted to come back to Solzhenitsyn for a minute, because his big thing about the USSR was it was so ideological that you could not speak the truth in any manner. Because by definition, communism was there, so utopia had been achieved. And if you were to acknowledge your own suffering, it was an act of treason.
Right.
So nobody could speak the truth, and it completely corrupted everybody in every way.
And it's still affecting them now.
Oh gosh, yes, it is. But the people who kept the Soviet Union alive, incidentally, were the black marketeers, the people who were able to figure out ways around the government. And those are the people who are doing okay now, but the people who swallowed it and tried to be good communists,
mm-hmm.
you know, their entire spirit was completely crushed. Their soul was destroyed. And Peterson's thought about these utopians is that the utopia is the justification for the cruelty that they want to do anyway.
Yep.
The cruelty is the end. The utopianism is the justification because these people are filled with envy and hatred of reality, which means essentially hatred of God. They judge the reality God created as being imperfect, therefore destruction is the logical conclusion. And the utopianism is how they rationalize it in their mind as they're not just evil SOBs.
Hey,
So.
I wanted to ask you, because it's driving me nuts when I was talking to the last caller. They're telling about Gary North. Who was Gary's father-in-law?
Rushdoony.
Rushdoony. Right.
He wrote The Messianic Character of American Education.
I was sitting here hitting my head with my hand. Driving me nuts. Yeah, because I thought he might know who Rushdoony was at least.
Yeah. So North's key, one of North's key statements, and I think he got it from Rushdoony, is Christians complain about taxes and then tithe their children to the state.
Jeez.
Taxes would be a small price to pay to get your children back.
And you would recommend, because I know, well, I don't know if you still do, but you subscribe to Gary North's newsletter or whatever it is.
I'm on his specific answers site. I've been spending less time there lately, but it's a very good resource for getting entrepreneurial advice, or advice on specific topics which a Liberty community might be interested in. It's a good place, and it's some place I find worth spending the money to be a member of.
Yeah, when he knocks it out of the park, it's usually on Lou Rockwell anyway.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, he is fantastic. All right, man. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's
Bye-bye.
good thoughts. You guys make it a lot easier to do this show when you call in because you always got good thoughts. Gets my mind spurning and turning. I like that. I like to think. Think. I like my brain to be rolling 90, 120. It's all good. And, of course, anybody could email me at Patriots Lament. Make sure that's right. patriotslament@gmail.com. Yeah. Anytime. I don't always get back to you right away, but I try. I do try. And I'm sure you know that we have the website, patriotslament@blogspot.com. We have the Facebook, which I haven't been doing anything on either one of those for so long, but I'm going to try to endeavor to do so again soon. My oldest son is going to take on putting the archive shows up on our YouTube site, which we will also transfer over to the blog, because I just haven't had time to do it. It takes time. I mean, it takes about a half hour to an hour to convert everything over, MP3 it, and this and that. Then you got to upload it to YouTube, and it just takes time. So I think I have... well, not the last one, but the time before of Adam Dick, Danny McAdams, and the last time Ron Paul was on. I got those up. And but I've got a slew of shows that need to get up. And I'm going to try, hopefully, if my kid can get it going on here, I'm going to try to put up the whole or history course that we did. I'm going to try to put that whole thing up. If anything, so I can listen to it. So, all right. Well, that does it for another week. Oh, no, it doesn't. Dang it. I got another minute. Anyway, that's close enough. Thanks for participating today. Appreciate you guys listening in. It is good. And lots of good ideas. And now we just need to go forward with them and not just let them be ideas. Ideas got to turn into action. I mean, we really can. There's enough of us here. And there's enough of a community even outside of right here, and enough brain power for sure, to make some of these ideas turn into reality. And I honestly believe start looking at changing our community for sure. One heart at a time. All right, that does it. My name is Josh Bennett. This was Patriots Lament on 660 KFAR. We'll see you hopefully next week. Have a good day.